following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month.
Don't miss your favorite superstars take center stage to forge the future of the hottest new brand in WWE.
Oh, I'm tired. I'm like Hulk in the Avengers. That's my secret. I'm always tired. Hey, it's the Jeff DeHaan here for Forging the Future. You know that guy who used to actually host it every week? Yes, I am back. I took a bit of a break. Things were just kind of crazy. I needed some time. Big ups to Drew Ferris for covering for a couple weeks there. Much appreciated, sir. A fine job he did. In fact, so fine a job that I might take some cues from him and his performance and incorporate them into the show here, which is why we're a little more casual. Why am I tired? Because it's first thing in the morning. I thought I would try something different. And what better time to forge one's own future than first thing in the morning? But first things first, I need some coffee. Let's see if I can do this one-handed while I'm holding my phone. Nope, it's got to get set down. Okay. I'm assuming you can probably still hear me. It's not far away. This was a big week. A very big week because, at least for me and a lot of Canadians, because TakeOver, which was just a week ago, along with SummerSlam, Raw, and SmackDown, were all in Toronto. So it was pretty impressive, pretty cool, and as such, there wasn't a whole lot going on the TakeOver TV show this week, so I'm actually going to recap TakeOver. What mug do I want? What mug? I think it's a sugar skull kind of day. So I'm going to recap TakeOver. Now, patrons got a bit of a bonus last week because of the craziness of everything, and you know, people in WrestleMedia were busy. The on tour crew, which is Adam and whoever else is able to join him, were very busy going to shows. Most of the time it was Mike. They were travel buddies for a lot of the week leading up to TakeOver. Did a whole lot of shows, so it was tough getting people to fill in. So patrons got a nice little bonus last week of a table for five, if you will, of trying to... this doing other things while trying to talk is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Of just going to shows and everything like that. And we did a cool bonus immediately after TakeOver of the five of us who attended it together, which was Adam, Mike, myself, and Andrew Kent. And that was a cool TakeOver thing. But I'm not one to want to rob our free listeners. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on TakeOver. Plus, for the patrons listening, fret not. This is not going to be a carbon copy because, as I've stated before, and it's kind of why I like waiting a week to talk TakeOver results, is sometimes my feelings change. And these toddler locks aren't easy with one hand either. Sometimes my feelings change once I've had a chance to let a show kind of settle. You know, I've had a chance to mull it over in my head And sometimes a match that I really liked, I don't like as much. Sometimes a match that I wasn't too keen on, I actually like more. So we'll go through that and we'll talk the TV tapings and stuff. And then patrons will probably get some NXT UK talk. Again, much like how Drew was doing it in my absence. But first, a spot of sugar. Organic sugar, because I try to be healthy. Most of the time I fail. But I try. Put that away. There goes the kettle. Alright. Oh, almost forgot my creamer. Where are you? There you are. Vanilla toffee caramel, because I'm a flavored coffee kind of person. And speaking of the coffee, throw that in. It's kind of a weird instant coffee. I feel a little bit like RJ City right now, although I'm not in my underwear like he is when he makes coffee. But yeah, so I'm not going to go into detail about the coffee. It's supposed to be like kind of a healthier one. So I like it. Pour in the coffee. You might be able to hear my dog's tags once in a while, or her little her claws clicking away on the wood kitchen floor here. So, because she's up same time as me, aren't you, Leia? Yeah, look at that tail wag. I don't have a hoof for you, and you don't have enough teeth to really enjoy it as much as Drew's dog probably either. Apparently that's a genetic problem with poodles. They have naturally, like, their teeth aren't great. Makes me feel bad for her, but she's not terrible. She can still eat solid food. It's just something as big and clunky as a hoof. Probably not a good idea. Alright, so without further ado, I've chit-chatted and put this off long enough. Takeover. Alright. Before I get to the opening match, because I might jump around a little bit. I don't know if I'll do it completely in order. Something that happened on TakeOver was Matt Riddle came through the crowd and called out Killian Dane. He said he knew Dane was there, and he wanted to call him out because Dane kept attacking him, and he wanted to, give him a receipt, so to speak. And Dane did show up, and they brawled, and referees and security got involved, and they ended up going through a table. It wasn't a bad segment, but it did feel out of place during the TakeOver show. TakeOvers have always been the kind of thing where it's the matches, it's pretty straightforward. You don't typically even get backstage segments and stuff like that. You might get a promo or you get a shot of someone preparing for their match backstage, but that's it. I kind of felt the same way a couple years back before WrestleMania when Seth Rollins kind of interrupted a takeover. I had felt the same way then, so this to me was no different, and it felt sort of out of place. It could have been on the TV tapings, and if they didn't want to put it off that long, I don't see why they couldn't have put it on the pre-show. I know that takeovers don't have a kickoff show the same way as the main roster pay-per-views do. There's no actual kickoff matches. If anything, the kickoff matches are the TV tapings that air the following Wednesday, which I'll get to later. But at one point there was the table was set up that had Pat McAfee. I actually remembered his name. I'm impressed at this time in the morning. Not Sam. Sam Roberts. I always forget his last name because when I associate Sam Roberts with the Canadian musical artist, not some dude with like Danny Parkhill hair and a big beard. But yeah. And someone who looked like Charlie Caruso. It was dark hair, but it was from the back. But it was shorter than like Caleb Braxton's hair is, because I keep track of hair length, I guess. So it was most likely Charlie Caruso. And I'm guessing it was kind of a sort of pre-show thing. Sorry, my coffee needs a lot of stirring. It's kind of an instant coffee, but it's not bad. All right. So yes, it might not have been a full-fledged pre-show, but they could have done it during that, and it's something they could have recapped during TakeOver. Like, they could have interrupted them when they were talking in the ring. There's no reason they couldn't have done it that way, and I think that would have been a more effective use of it. It would have given an extra 5 minutes to matches, and it doesn't have to be an extra 5 minutes for any one match. And there goes my pen. It doesn't have to be an extra 5 minutes to any one match, but, you know, a couple minutes here and there would have given them some wiggle room if they needed it. Not that they had an issue. Like, the show ended, I think, almost exactly at 10 o'clock. But it felt very much like a TV segment to me. So that's my complaint on that. It felt kind of unnecessary for TakeOver. But looking at matches, the show kicked off with the Tag Team Championships, as I suspected it would. Hi, Leia. You gonna lie beside me here on the couch? Come on, lay down. That's my good girl. Excellent match. Fantastic. And I feel like this was a great match. While they are the Tag Team Champions, I feel like this was a great match to really show people who the Street Profits are. And not introduce, but I mean, there's people that they might have seen them win the titles, and because they didn't have a lot of high-profile matches prior to winning the championships. Like, they were seen. It's not like nobody knew who they were, but I feel like they went from just fighting on TV once in a while to getting the tag title shot like that, like really quickly. Like, I believe their actual tag title match, that ladder match, was their first TakeOver. You know, so they'd never even had like a non-title tag team match at a TakeOver or anything. So for people who maybe don't catch the weekly product as much, but they like watching the TakeOvers, they would be less familiar with who the Street Profits are. So I feel like this match was really great in showing exactly who they are. Oh, that's still hot. Fantastic match, and I expected nothing less. This match itself definitely lived up to expectations, because it's the Street Profits, and it's the Undisputed Era, and Fish and O'Reilly never, ever disappoint. I'd actually like to go back and see, out of all the takeovers that the Undisputed Era has been a part of, whether it was Fish and O'Reilly or O'Reilly and Strong, how often they opened the shows. I know it wasn't every time, because I know the match where Strong turned on Pete Dunne and joined the Undisputed Era, I know that didn't open the show, because that was New Orleans, I think, because the North American title ladder match opened that show. But I'm pretty sure more often than not, the Undisputed Era, whether they were tag champions or fighting for the tag titles, that opened the show. And I'd also be interested to see how often the tag title matches open the show without the Undisputed Era, to see if it's a coincidence that they open the show as opposed to just the tag titles. But fantastic match. I really, really dug it. Some big pops for Montez Ford for trying a people's elbow, which got thwarted, but then later on he hit the rock bottom. Great double team moves. This match really showed what am I trying to say here? It really showed the chemistry that these teams have with one another. Like, I don't necessarily mean the teams themselves with each other. I mean the teams, like, within, like, the chemistry that Fish and O'Reilly have together. There we go. Or the chemistry that Ford and Dawkins have together. Like, you can tell, I don't know how long Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins have been teaming. I know that Fish and O'Reilly have been teaming for quite some time, like on the Indies and everything, and they were associated with Cole there, and even Roderick Strong for a time. So it makes sense that the four of them became the Undisputed Era. But then Dawkins and Ford, I got to look back, because I'm really curious to see if they've been a team like throughout their independent career as well before coming to NXT. It wouldn't surprise me. I would actually be very surprised if I found out that the Street Profits weren't a team prior to coming to the Performance Center and everything. That would probably shock the hell out of me, to be quite honest. Next up, I believe, was the match that I was looking the most forward to on the card. And it's not that I necessarily thought it was going to be the best match on the card, because that's pretty difficult when you're talking takeovers. But it's definitely the match I was most intrigued by. And that was Io Shirai taking on Candice LeRae. Now, this was definitely Candice's first official takeover. She's wrestled on the TV tapings prior to takeovers, which, as we've seen from Performance Center videos in the past, oftentimes, that's considered takeover to the people that are wrestling on the TV tapings. And I get it. I mean, it's no different than someone who's wrestling on, like, the WrestleMania kickoff show. They still consider that WrestleMania to them, which it is. So even though it's a TV taping that airs after the fact, I mean, they don't hide it, that it's still got the takeover aprons and everything. It's to them it's takeover, and that's cool. But to be on the actual takeover card proper, I believe this is Candice's first time, and possibly Io's only second time on a takeover card. I'm trying to remember, because I think she only had 2 title matches against Shayna Baszler, and one of them was on TV, because that's where she turned on Candice. And then the other one, I believe, was TakeOver, because that's where she attacked her afterwards, yada yada. But this, part of why I was looking forward to this, aside from the fact that I'm a huge, huge fan of both ladies, was also that this was the grudge match. I mean, not to say that other matches weren't, but I'm always a little more interested sometimes. Well, I shouldn't say more interested, but I'm always interested in the one non-title match on a takeover card, because they need more motivation than just a championship, because they don't have that card in their back pocket. It's got to be about something else. And this was a grudge match. Like, there was bad blood here. And it was really cool. And I really liked the build up. Like, even on social media, Candice LeRae posted, she tweeted something about how she was getting ready for TakeOver, or maybe she can find that blonde girl that everybody keeps talking about. And for any that don't know, on Being the Elite and a lot of AEW social media stuff, when it comes to Joey Ryan, even though he's not an AEW wrestler, he's pretty heavily associated with them. He was getting attacked all the time, and people say, hey, what happened to that blonde girl you used to hang out with? And the running gags that Candice used to always save his ass, and now she's not there because she's in WWE. And So I really dug the build to this. And Io, I was shocked like hell that she turned heel. Like, it surprised the crap out of me. But man, she is good at it. Io's someone who she's proving right now that she can work babyface and she can work heel. Now, if anything, I find her much more interesting as a heel right now. That's not to say that she wasn't a good babyface. Like, a lot of her in-ring style lends to being a babyface. So it doesn't surprise me that she's a good babyface. But I'm really digging this heel run. We'll see where this goes. I would not be surprised if we see when Shayna eventually drops the title, whether it be by actual loss or having to relinquish it like Asuka and Paige have done in the past. Once she does, if whoever gets the title, my assumption would be a babyface. If Io winds up being the one to dethrone said babyface and get the women's championship, I would go as far as saying Io will be a future NXT Women's Champion, but the last time I did that was with Sonya Deville, and she got called up before winning the women's title. For obvious reasons, she was a dark-haired former MMA athlete who was wrestling in NXT. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? So, with Shayna on the way, I understand why they didn't want to keep Sonya Deville in there as well. Kind of similar. So, this match, really, really great. In fact, this was, for the non-patrons, Adam's match of the night, and it's starting to sway me. This was one that, while I loved it, I didn't consider it my match of the night. But it's crept up there. The more I've thought about it, this is the match that I've reflected on the most throughout the week. It's the match that I've really kind of come to think back on the most and the most fondly. So it's definitely moved up there for me. And it's my choice for match of the night immediately after was the main event, and I'll talk about that more later. But a lot of it was kind of spectacle, the emotion of it, the fact that I'm a big Johnny Gargano fan. The best wrestled match is one I'm going to get to soon as well. But this one, I can't say that this didn't live up to my expectations. It did. And if my expectations of this were that it was the match I was looking the most forward to, it's kind of hard for me to not call it the match of the night. Like, they worked hard. And any praise the two of them get is well deserved. I loved the story they told here. They both look strong. Io won, and she won by submission. But I don't think Candice tapped. I think she just put on a hold, and it was like with her, it's very hard to describe, so I'm not even going to try, but basically she had her legs like wrapped around Candice's head, kind of like a head scissor, but from a different angle. And then she took Candice's own arm and like stretched it across her face to help impede her breathing even more. And I think Candice just passed out. So it keeps Candice strong, and my biggest hope coming out of this match is that we will see more Candice LeRae on TV. This is her first real feud in NXT. I mean, she's been around for a while, and she has had a lot of TV matches. But the most prominent role she's had, in my opinion, on NXT TV was as Johnny Gargano's wife. And that's not necessarily terrible, especially given that at the time Gargano was in the biggest feud of the year, potentially in all of WWE. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, to finally be able to say, no, I'm Candice LeRae. In fact, that's something else she tweeted after the show. She said how happy she was to finally be able to be Candice LeRae and not Johnny's wife. Not that she has a problem with being Johnny's wife, but from a work perspective, it's nice to be able to showcase her own talent, which she has plenty of, let me tell you. Wow. I really did love this match. I loved everything they did. I love that they got started right away. Like, it really added to that whole grudge match feel. It was fan-friggin-tastic. Love these ladies. I would be perfectly happy if this wasn't the last time we saw them wrestle, but at the same time, unless they're going to take Candice seriously enough and let her get some wins, I don't want to see them keep feuding. Like, I don't want to see them keep feuding if it's just going to be Io coming out on top every time. And it's not that she doesn't deserve it, but I feel like that would bury Candice. They're almost better off having both of them switch. Like, maybe you could even have Io start feuding with Mia Yim if they're going to push Mia Yim away from the women's title picture or what. Maybe they'll move Candice up to Baszler, have a rematch from the first Mae Young Classic. That would be interesting. But time will tell on that. But that match, fantastic. It's a 3-way tie for me for match of the night, with obviously Candice and Io, potentially the main event, and this next match, which was the North American title triple threat. And no, I'm not talking about myself with brains, bronze, and looks. Because, if anything, I've only got one of those three. No, obviously it was Pete Dunne, Roddy Strong, and Bobby McShackleford himself, the Velveteen Dream. This was a lot of people's match of the night, and I would at least say that this was the best wrestled match of the night, without question. Bar none. This was fantastic. They told a great story. And this is incredibly minor, the only real complaint you could give is that it was formulaic for a triple threat, in that the three of them fought for a little bit, someone took a powder, two wrestled, one came back, another one left. But it didn't detract from the match. That's why I said it's a very, very minor complaint, because how else are you going to do a triple threat? You can't have all three guys in there the entire match. It's just becomes too much of a schmoz. So that's how triple threat matches always go. But that's really the only, like, I have to search to be able to find that to nitpick about, because the rest of this match was flawless. You know, like, there were very little things that went wrong. Like, not that I can even recall. No real botches. There were some great spots. I loved a lot of the triple team stuff they did. Like, Dunn did a lot of joint manipulation on both guys at the same time, stepping on hands. Dream got over, no pun intended, real well with the Canadian crowd, doing the Bret Hart hand gesture, and he was wearing suspenders for a brief time during the match with his ring gear. I hypothesized that was a tribute to Owen Hart, because Owen used to wear suspenders with his gear whenever he was part of High Energy with Coco Beware. So I thought, well, maybe that's, kind of a tribute to Owen. It's possible. I believe Velveteen Dream might have even gone for a sharpshooter during the match as well. Certainly a good way to get over with the Canadian crowd, as if he wasn't going to be already. I'm sure Dream's one of those guys who could be like an honorary Canadian. One thing I will say, very impressed with Roderick Strong in this match. I'm a huge Roddy fan as it is. I'm a huge fan of all three of these guys. Make no mistake. But leading up to this match, I felt like Roddy was almost becoming an afterthought. As soon as Dunn was announced, in the match. And then you had Roddy and Dunn have a one-on-one match on NXT TV, which Pete won. Pete Dunn won. And then, you know, Dunn and Velveteen Dream would start having some face-to-faces and stuff. And it started to feel like Roddy was an afterthought. And he is too good to be an afterthought. And he proved that in this match. He was fantastic. And I know I use fantastic a lot, but he was. Like, there was a lot of times where he commanded that ring. It's pretty safe bet that, well, no, actually, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it's a pretty safe bet that Roddy was the veteran of this trio. But I think Pete Dunne's been wrestling since like the age of 12 or right out of the womb or something. It's those Brits. British wrestlers and Japanese wrestlers both seem to start at a very young age. So, so Pete's been wrestling, I think, since the age of 12 or something like that. So I guess he probably has a couple of years on Roddy. But at the same time, I think Roddy's a little older than him, so it's possible that Roddy does. Anyways, Roddy's got a lot of experience, and he commanded that ring. And there were some Roddy chants and everything. Like, all three guys were over, despite, you know, Roddy being a heel and everything. The crowd ate it up, and it was, without question, the best wrestled match of the show. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today.
And then we go to the flip side of that, and that's the women's championship match. Shayna Baszler defending against Mia Yim. This one got some harsh criticism from the rest of the guys, as the patrons would know. A lot of them didn't like it. I probably liked it the most of the five of us that attended from WrestleMedia. And now that I've had some time to reflect on it, that hasn't changed. I did actually enjoy this match. I didn't think it was terrible. It all depends on your perspective. Like, at the time, I said it felt like a cool down match. And I think it might have been Cole who, he agreed, and he said it felt like a TV match. And I can see how, you know, you're at a takeover and people are meant to, you know, turn it up a notch when they're at a takeover, so it doesn't feel like a TV match. The same as when you watch a pay-per-view, you expect the quality of match to be better than what you see on Raw or SmackDown. But plain and simple, that isn't always the case. I think someone like, say, Adam as well was a little disappointed because he often considers Shayna Baszler's matches to wind up being the match of the night. And this one definitely was not that. Like, I will go on record as saying, yes, this was the weakest match on the TakeOver card, without question. And that's not meant to take anything away from Baszler or Yim. The rest of the card was phenomenal. So, someone's got to be last, kind of thing, right? And unfortunately, it was this women's title match. The two have wrestled before, and they have chemistry. So I don't know why they seemed like they were off a little bit. Maybe they were. And I suspect some of the dislike for some of the guys might be watching it live. It's not quite the same as watching it on TV, having the commentary. Like, I've heard wrestlers, Edge has said this a lot on his podcast with Christian, but I've heard other wrestlers say it too. Cody, I believe, has said it, that the commentary is kind of the lyrics to the music that the wrestlers are creating in the ring. So if you're watching live, you're basically watching an instrumental performance. And that's not to say that you can't enjoy an instrumental performance. I, for example, am a huge fan of Lindsey Sterling and of Nita Strauss. Both do not sing on a regular basis on their music. I just needed an excuse to bring up the two of them because I love them so much. New Lindsey Sterling album coming out next month, by the way, for anybody who's a fan. And go pick up Controlled Chaos by Nita Strauss if you love guitar music. She is fantastic. Oh, fantastic is the word of the day. Unfortunately, I don't know if it describes this match. Yim wasn't bad, but it just, I don't know if she was off a step. Maybe she was nervous because it was her first actual takeover. I don't know. But something did seem a little off with this match. I still enjoyed it. And despite it being, the weakest match on the card, quote unquote, I still enjoyed it. I think it would be a different story if it was watched on TV, and I wanted to go back and watch it this week, and I didn't get time. I wanted to watch a lot of these takeover matches over again so I could hear the commentary and get the full picture, so to speak. But again, I didn't have a chance to. But there was a story here that I think got overlooked. During the match, both Yim and Baszler were working each other's arms. And what I really loved about it was Yim was working the arm, which caused Shayna to not be able to properly lock in, what's hers called? Kirifuda clutch. I almost called it the Coquina clutch, but I know that's Samoa Joe's finish. The Kirifuda clutch. She couldn't lock it in properly because Yim had been working on her arm. And that got reflected in here. But then at the end of the match, when she tried to lock it in again and she couldn't secure it, she shifted her position and she locked in like a head scissor kind of hold. And that's how Mia Yim tapped out. And I feel like that story got overlooked to someone who's in the audience watching and not super close to the action like we were. Don't get me wrong, Scotiabank Arena, the former ACC, there isn't a bad seat in the house. But you do lose a little something when you're not as close as you would be, like if you're watching it on TV. You can't see the minute details of the action. And I feel like that might have been how this match suffered in relation to the rest of the guys. And I'm sure Kent, Adam, Mike, and maybe even Cole, although Cole's a pretty quiet guy, but they might be listening to this saying, Jeff, you're full of poop. I didn't like the match. It was a bad match, and that's that. And, they're entitled to their opinion, as wrong as they are. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. Not great, but I thought it was a good match. It was the only one I got wrong, by the way, for anyone keeping score, and any patrons that listen to the quick picks. I actually called Mia Yim to win the title here. And it was the only match throughout the entire night that I got wrong. Because, spoilers, not a single title changed hands. But yeah, so this match was what it was. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward. I don't know if we're going to see another match between the two, especially given the fact that I'm assuming my brothers in WrestleMedia probably weren't the only ones who felt the way they did at the match. Speaking of my brothers in WrestleMedia, and sister for that matter, Jenny from Women Crush Wrestling was here. And I'm looking very, very forward to hearing her thoughts on this match. Now, she might have already done it on the Patreon part of the most recent episode, because they've been doing a lot of interviews on Women Crush Wrestling. Unless you're a Patreon subscriber, which you can do at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Danny, if you're listening, it's patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. It's okay. If you put in patreon.ca, it redirects anyways, so you'll get there however you get there. But then you can actually hear all of Jenny and Adam's thoughts on TakeOver and the like. But I'd be really interested because, much like myself, Jenny is a big fan of Mia Yim. Also, Jenny was sitting a lot closer than the rest of us were, so she might have had a better view and grasp of the match than we could have gotten. So Jenny, if you're listening to this, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that match. Maybe I'll message her later and find out. Could be. And last, fini for TakeOver was the main event 2 out of 3 falls match, basically a 3 stages of hell match, but they didn't ever call it that. It was always just a 2 out of 3 falls match. First fall being a regular one-on-one match, second fall being a street fight, and the third fall, if it should come to it, was of William Regal's choosing. But we all knew, or thought we knew, what it was going to be. It was pretty obvious that there was a cage hanging above the ring. It was covered by black, I don't want to say tarp because it was more a curtainy kind of material, but it was covered so you couldn't see the cage, but you could tell it was a cage, especially with how high up we were sitting. We could see kind of over the hole in the middle and see the other side. You could see the mesh. So we knew it was a cage. So, sitting up in our high horse, acting like the smug marks that we were. We knew what they had planned. Oh, were we ever wrong? Alright, so first fall goes to Adam Cole because Gargano got himself disqualified intentionally. See, Cole brought a chair into the ring. Didn't get a chance to use it, but before the referee could dispose of the chair, Gargano had it. He decided to use it. He got disqualified. Continued to beat down Adam Cole with said steel chair. Sat on the steel chair. The ring announcer made the announcement that the first fall due to disqualification went to Adam Cole, and now the start of the second fall, a street fight. Oh look! Gargano still had a steel chair in hand and proceeded to beat the holy heck out of Adam Cole, baby. With the chair, there was all kinds of, there was a few other weapons. I think they had a couple of tables brought into the ring. There was a lot of stuff in there, adding to the street fight. And much to my pleasure, and this probably added to me calling this the match of the night immediately following the show, was the second fall got a decent amount of time. Not as much as the third, and not as much as the first, but often with 2 out of 3 falls matches, I feel like the first fall gets the most amount of time, second fall is over like that, and then the third fall might get some time. But the second fall, while still the shortest of the 3, felt like it got a decent amount of time, and that made me so happy, because so often that doesn't happen. Second fall went to Gargano. I believe he made Cole tap out with the Gargano stretch. Then the cage began to lower. I was filming the cage lowering, which you'll probably see later this week, or within the soon. I'm not even going to try to put a timetable on it. Adam does a lot of our video editing, and dude is busy AF. So he'll get to it when he can, but look forward to lots of fun footage from the whole SummerSlam week, and TakeOver itself should be a lot of fun. But I'm filming and watching this cage lower, and I had this pause moment and leaned over to Adam. You might even be able to hear it on the video. It depends on if Adam uses the audio or not. Are those weapons on the cage? Yes. The cage lowered with a table strapped to one corner, like on the top of the cage. A ladder on the top of a different corner of the cage. A barbed wire wrapped around the entire top of the cage. Kendo sticks wedged into the chain link of the cage. A sledgehammer stuffed into the top of the cage. There was a fire extinguisher attached to one corner of the cage. There was a sack of mystery items, which I will get to later, attached to the cage somewhere. There was So much stuff, just weapons. Chains were attached to this cage. There was so much. Again, I didn't get a chance to go back and watch, so I don't know if they would have given this a name. Our suspicion was that Regal was going to come out and announce the third fall and actually specify. He did not. So I don't know if they came up with a name for this war cage. Ugh. That's all I can think of it. This war thing. Whew. But it was nuts. And man, they beat the hell out of each other. Whew. Loved it. This was definitely the best cap off to their feud. This is most definitely the end of Johnny Gargano's time in the NXT title picture, I think. There was definitely a thank you Johnny chant after the show. I suppose a lot of people are thinking this is Gargano's swan song. Maybe this is the end of him in NXT. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I hope not, because I honestly don't think he'll be used properly on the main roster. There's a lot of talk of him going to 205 Live, and while we've gotten some good people going to 205 Live, you look at someone like Chad Gable. He doesn't get used properly. Buddy Murphy, while a big star in 205 Live, they did nothing with him from the draft up until a couple of weeks ago, and now he started to get some appearances on SmackDown. Cedric Alexander was one of the guys who was chasing around the 24/7 title up until recently, and now he's been in a great feud with Drew McIntyre. But it takes time to use these 205 Live guys effectively. So I don't want to see, and I don't want to see Johnny move up. I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of Ciampa. I mean, he's gotten some exposure prior to Christmas time, prior to WrestleMania. He was up on the main roster for a few weeks. So there's that. But I mean, it's kind of that old adage of, those guys who are the most beloved in NXT, the fans don't want to see them go anywhere. Especially if they're not going to get used properly. Because a lot of guys don't. I don't think Balor has in the entire time he was on the main roster. I don't think he's ever actually been used properly. Former Intercontinental Champion, but when he had the title, they didn't do anything with it. I don't know if they're gun shy after he got injured during his Universal title match, when he first came up, or what, but they've been really gun shy about a lot of people. Owens, I'd say Owens has been alright on the main roster. I mean, it was a bit of a flub recently when he came back as a babyface, and then they turned him heel, and now they've turned him back babyface again. But I don't think that's a reflection of the Office's thoughts or feelings on Kevin Owens as it was. They felt like they were painted in a corner. But Owens is probably more of an exception than the rule. A lot of NXT talent it takes a while for them to kind of get up to that spot. Like, I mean, yes, Rollins is a former NXT champion, so I guess there's more exceptions than just Owens. But either way, my point is, I don't want Johnny Gargano to go up to the main roster. But that could be the case. Time will tell. I'm sure even if he is, he'll probably take some time off. So we probably won't see him on NXT TV. Wow. Such is the burden of recording in the morning. I just can't talk. Like that's a change to any other time. We won't see him on NXT TV, I think, for a little while. And if he does debut on the main roster, I suspect it'll probably be closer to Survivor Series. Maybe even Royal Rumble, but I think that's pushing it. And you know what? Maybe we will still see him in NXT for a while. He might be part of the War Games match. I think that would be cool because we haven't seen him as part of a War Games match. And it would be nice for a War Games match to maybe not have the Undisputed Era in it for a change. They're fantastic, They're great, but do we need them in every War Games match? It would be nice to see a War Games match that mixed it up a little bit and, maybe just culminated a bunch of different feuds and had them all in there together. That's still a few months away, but being that it's the next TakeOver, I'm looking forward to the build to TakeOver War Games 3. I think it'll be really interesting. I'm looking forward to that a lot. But that was it. Cole got the third fall, and he retained. So not a single championship changed hands on TakeOver, which was surprising. I was expecting at least one to change hands, as I had said. And it didn't, so there you go. I've been talking for a lot longer than I thought. Yeah, so you know what? We are going to cut it off about here. I know I still have the TV tapings for NXT, but I'm going to move that to Patreon. So if you want to hear about that, you know what you got to do, kids? You got to go to patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Plunk down. Well, there's lots of different ones. You can do $2 a month. That gets you a shout out. It's some fun stuff. But if you want the bonus content, if you want a lot of the extras, you got to go to $5, $10, $20 a month. But it's worth your dollars. Don't get me wrong. You put those ducats in our bucket, and it is worth it. But yeah, that's how you get the full Monty, the full Jeffy, if you will. Oh, that was terrible. But I'll go with it. The full Jeffy. And you get the whole show. The whole shebang. And you'll hear me talk all about the finals of the breakout tournament. You're going to hear me talk about the return of Breezango. Febreze is back, baby. But you're only going to hear that if you're a Patreon subscriber. But I will, too, take another cue from Drew, give you my MVP and my match of the week. They're both going to be from TakeOver. My match of the week, I'm giving to Candice LeRae and Io Shirai. I loved the match. And like I said, it wasn't necessarily the best wrestled match on the card, but I loved the story they told. And like I said, it lived up to my expectations. So how can I not make it that? And my MVP of the week. This one's a little trickier. Everybody brought it for TakeOver. But I'm going to give it to the Dream. That man, for how young he is, I think he's only 23, for how little experience compared to some of his other NXT contemporaries that he has, that man can control a room. He commands attention. As long as the main roster fans, because make no mistake, there's a lot of people who do not watch NXT. As long as the main roster fans get the Velveteen Dream gimmick, he is one that I have absolute faith in succeeding on the main roster. He's great on the mic. He's great in the ring. He knows how to read a crowd. He knows how to get them going. He knows how to get over it. Like, he's really is a total package. He's fantastic. So your North American champion Velveteen Dream, he is my MVP for the week. And that'll do it for the Jeff DeHaan. That's me. I don't even know if I actually said that at the beginning. I was so tired. Oh, I need this coffee so much. Yum, yum, yum. But that'll do for the free portion of the proceedings. I've already told you well enough. If you want to hear the rest, you know where you got to go. Patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. The only thing I have left to say is that I have a giveaway. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show. Ah, well, if you stuck around this long, you get a nice little bonus. I'm giving away a copy of the Best of TakeOver 2018, the 2-disc set, and it can be yours for free. All you have to do is punch in the codes, kind of like how The Lasting Mark did it a couple weeks ago for tickets to Never Say Never. But I'm going to make you work for it. There's going to be 2 codes. One this week and one next week. So you just got to go to WrestleMedia and to the page where the codes will be. There should be some prompts on there. I'll double check with Adam. Keep an eye on my social media at the Jeff Dehan and WrestleMedia.ca. And your code for this week is Johnny Wrestling. All one word. JOHNNYWRESTLING. Johnny Wrestling. So go there, put in that code, and then listen to next week's show. Put in that code. And all the people that get both codes put in correctly and everything will be put in a hat, randomly pulled, and you will win yourself a copy of Best of TakeOver 2018. So until next week, I'm the Jeff Dehan. Forge that future, kids. Okay, I lied. I'm not done yet. I can't believe I completely forgot to talk about this. I meant to. I totally did. But just all that talk about TakeOver, it was first thing in the morning. I wasn't really going off of any notes. But this is too big to ignore. And with all due respect to the patrons who do give us their hard-earned money, thanks, guys. This is something that I wanted as many people to hear as possible. If you haven't heard it in the news yet, it is looking like NXT is going to be moving to USA, meaning the USA Network. They're already in America. But yeah, that's huge. Nothing is absolutely 100% confirmed yet, but insiders are saying that it's basically a done deal that NXT is going to move to the USA Network, and it's going to be a live 2-hour show from 8 till 10, competing directly with AEW on TNT. And it could start either the same week, which is October 2nd, or word is that Vince wants to get a jump on it, and they might actually start it a week or 2 early. So it looks like we might actually get a Wednesday Night War. Now again, none of this is 100% confirmed. I've read a couple different things. I've read that Full Sail might not actually be able to handle a regular weekly show, and they may wind up being live every other week and then taped. So that's possible. And I mean, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. That's how they used to do Raw until they were forced to go live every week during the Monday Night War. So very, very interesting stuff. And I figure I might as well leave you on a pretty cool note, because that's kind of crazy insane. I'm still kind of, I don't want to say floored. Like, part of me's not surprised, and there's been kind of touch and go rumors for a while that NXT was going to move to Fox Sports 1, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, it looks like WWE is moving NXT directly to USA to be in direct competition with AEW. Wow. I don't know what I'm going to do, because I love me some AEW, but, I mean, this was an NXT podcast first. And what's that going to do for NXT? Is Vince going to let Hunter continue to be in charge when it's going to be in direct competition? Or is Vince going to try to get his hands a little more involved in NXT? I'm going to keep my eye on this and try to keep you informed as much as possible through the coming weeks. But it's interesting stuff, kids. Forge that future.